Oh yeah, let me get going. And this is a presentation specifically for the Big West, but it can be really for any student athlete. We're really trying to help students and student athletes with taxes because usually it's their first time filing by themselves, is usually in college. So we wanted to make it as simple and easy as possible and also kind of cater towards athletes because you may have additional income that other students might not have, such as NIL or other endorsement type of deals that you get because you're a student athlete. So we have some dedicated resources. The main thing I'm going to go over is really just the website, which has a dedicated page just for the Big West, including videos and step-by-step tutorials and stuff like that. We also have the student athlete email address, and pretty much any question you want to ask about filing your taxes, you can use this email address. And it's specific to people on our team that are going to be able to handle questions that students and new filers might have. So quickly, if I can get my link to work without looking like I've never used a PowerPoint before, which just like it's failing me. I'm gonna go right to the site in browser window instead, which is this site right here. So it's just easytaxreturn.com/bigwest. You don't have to do the blog in there. It's just a dedicated URL off of our site. It redirects when it decides to work. I'm now becoming a big liar. It's right here. It's right here. It does work. Um, so on this site, obviously you'll see the schools in the Big West, but it can be if you want to share it with anybody, you really can. Um, on this site, we have a resource center specifically with videos that help students and first-time filers. So these videos are short and really simple, like 1 minute, 46 seconds, for each little section to get started with your taxes and make it as easy as possible. So just know like these videos are made for student athletes to be simple and easy. You have the email address. We have additional resources, tax forms, tax FAQs, all kinds of stuff to make it as easy as possible. And then we even have, so one, it's not on this one, but I will take the recording of this and I'll actually put it right here at the top of the Tax Resource Center. So anyone that goes to this website can just watch this recording again. We'll edit it a little bit so it's a little bit more clean and simple. But they can watch the same exact presentation that we're going to go through. And just know that everything through here is going to go to people that can support you. And we even have, if you don't want to do it yourselves, we even have a service where if you're like, someone just needs to do this for me, I can't handle this, I'm just going to send you my tax documents. We can handle that too. It just costs a little more. And once you get started, it'll show you the price. It's usually about $150. And we'll just do as much as we possibly can for you. You won't have to worry about it too much. I am going to stop sharing and let Cheryl start the actual information part of this.
Hey. Okay. How's it going in presentation mode on that side? All right. So Jimmy went over the different resources and quick references for you. Any tax documents that you would have received, like a W-2 because you maybe worked part-time, or 1099 because you received some NIL income. You should have received that already by February 2nd. Taxes are due by April 15th. This is every year your taxes are due on the 15th. What I usually tell people is if you've maybe done the numbers a little bit and you know you're going to get a refund, maybe the 15th of April isn't quite so important, but you want to file before then anyway so you can get your money back from the government as quickly as possible. No reason to let them hold on to it longer than they already do. If you owe money, and this is actually really important in particular for maybe NIL recipients, there's a chance that you're going to owe money because you're a 1099 employee, not employee, a 1099 recipient, and that means you're treated more like self-employed. So taxes are generally not withheld like they are on a W-2. So there's a chance that you're going to owe money. So if you do owe money and you don't file and pay by April 15th, you are subject to interest and penalties, and the penalties can be late filing and late payment penalties. So even if you filed your return on time but didn't pay, you could still end up with a penalty for not paying on time. All right, so the first thing you want to find out is, do you even need to file? If you were an employee and you have a W-2, the IRS requires that you file a federal tax return if you made more than $15,750. Most students are not going to earn that kind of money. So then you can say to yourself, well, I don't need to file actually, because there's no filing requirement. However, if you're an employee, you probably had federal withholdings withheld on your paycheck, and you will get that back. If you made less than this amount of money, you will get all or most of that back by filing a tax return. So even if you don't have to file, you may want to, so that you can get refunded any money that was withheld from your payroll. Now, if you were considered self-employed, now this could be an Uber driver, DoorDash driver, maybe doing some part-time gig work like that, or maybe some NIL income, royalty income. That's considered more along self-employment, and that income does require that if you have $400 in net earnings from that self-employment, you're required to file a federal tax return. So it's very important to understand what kind of income you have and whether or not you need to file. Generally, it's just a great idea to file anyway. Okay, so when you're determining whether or not you need to file and you've decided, okay, I have a filing requirement for federal, for example, now you need to understand if you have to file a state tax return. And actually, yeah, so this is what if you even if you decided or determined that you don't need to file a federal tax return, you may still be required to file a state return. They sometimes some states will have a requirement that says if you're required to file federal, then you're required to file state. Some states say, oh, any income earned is a filing requirement. And so what we did to make it easy for you is we provided these links to your states where you can go and find out if there is a filing requirement. Okay, so when you decided that you're going to file, whether it's because you want to or need to, doesn't matter, you're getting into preparing your tax return. There's some things that you want to be very careful of. You want to make sure that you're using your full legal name. If your legal name includes a middle initial, make sure you include that in your tax return. And if you have a suffix like junior that is used as part of your legal name, make sure you include that too. This is all information that the IRS already has, but they utilize this information to validate you as not a fraudulent person, somebody that's filing a legitimate tax return. I always tell people, make sure you double check all your entries. Some people, we really would be, you would be so surprised to find out the number of people that maybe invert a couple of numbers on their social security number, or they enter an incorrect birth date. I don't know why people do it. I think people just try to get through things quickly, and then these problems happen. Now, if it happens, your tax return is going to get rejected. You can fix it and refile it, but to avoid those problems, just double check all your entries. Okay, this one's very important, I think, in particular for college students, because a lot of college students go to college out of state, away from home, their home state. So if you live in a dorm or, you know, on campus or near campus apartment in California, but your home state, where your parents live is in Nevada, you're going to use your home state address. That is considered your permanent address. When you go and you move to school for the school year, that is not considered an actual move of change of address. Your home state is where your supporting parents live, for example. So you just want to be really careful that you understand what that is supposed to look like, because that also determines what state tax returns you file. Okay. I think that this is probably one of the most important pieces of a tax return, that you want to be sure that you understand this and that you're doing this correctly. Every single software program out there that does taxes, you'll be asked this question: are you a dependent of another? And it's really important for you to understand that, because if you are a dependent of your parents and you don't indicate that on your tax return and you file it, you will cause a lot of headaches for your parents. So if you are financially still dependent on your parents as a student, you are likely a dependent of another, and you want to make sure that you indicate that on your tax return. If you're financially independent, then you're likely not a dependent of another. Much less common at the college level age. The biggest thing that we recommend is ask your parents before you file your taxes. Are they claiming you as a dependent on their tax return? And then you can proceed with your own tax returns accordingly. All right, so these are the most common income statements you might have received already or may in the future. W-2 form, it reports your wages as an employee. And then the most common ones behind that are the 1099 INT, interest income if you have a bank account. If you did any kind of gig economy work, you're going to get a 1099K. Excuse me. If you have royalty income or NIL income, it could be reported on a 1099 miscellaneous form. And if you also NIL income can be reported on a 1099 NEC. Every well, I'll show you that on the next page. When you're entering this information into a software program, you should be able to look and see, like look for under the income section, 1099 miscellaneous. It should be very clear to you. It shouldn't be hard to find that information. Okay, so just wanted to show you what a W-2 form looks like. If you got one, you already know, but this is generally what a W-2 form looks like. When you're entering a W-2 form, of course, everything on your tax return that gets entered should be double checked. Excuse me. But on a W-2 form in particular, these are the boxes where the entries that you make are how your tax return is calculated based on. And then this section down here, boxes 15 through 17, are state information. 1099 miscellaneous, I just wanted to show what another form looks like. Any information that you report will be in these boxes right here, likely. Very rarely you would find them in boxes 16 through 18. Generally, this is just to show you that on your income statements, you should always be able to find what form it is, because people get confused with that. So always look for exactly what form it is you need to enter on your paper form or your downloaded form. Okay, if you scholarship income, this might be a big thing for students. If you received a scholarship income for tuition only, then it's not considered taxable income. It does, however, still need to be reported on your tax return. The taxable portion of a scholarship or fellowship grant is generally the amount that is used for non-tuition expenses. If you received a grant for room and board and travel, that is taxable income. But all of this needs to be reported, which sounds kind of crazy that you still have to report income even if it's not taxable, but that's what the IRS requires. Okay, NIL income and royalty income can be a little bit confusing. So these rules that I'm going to go over are general rules. That's not a hard rule. There's always like caveats and nuances in taxes, because why would they make it easy? NIL income is like compensation that a student might receive for the use of your name, image, or likeness, NIL, and it requires that you actively promote something in order to receive that compensation. It's generally considered self-employment income. So generally it would be like reported on a 1099 NEC form. And then you would pay self-employment taxes on it accordingly, which would fall under that $400 net income level of income that is required in order to file a federal tax return. Royalty income is considered a passive payment, and that means that maybe somebody's licensing your image, like for a video game, which is taxable, but it's taxed more like wages and not as self-employment. And really the biggest difference is that royalty income doesn't require active promotion, where NIL does. Okay, education credits can be a little bit tricky. For most students, your parents are going to be claiming education credits for you, presumably, because if you're a dependent of your parents, you're not eligible to claim education credits, but your parents can. And of course, there's rules around that, you know, that the income can't exceed a certain amount or whatever. If you're not a dependent of another and you did pay for your own tuition, for example, you might be able to claim education credits. There are rules about students under the age of 24, but generally, if you are self-supporting, you can claim education credits. And there's non-refundable and refundable credits. A non-refundable credit, like the lifetime learning credit, what that means is it reduces your taxable income. It reduces your tax, but it doesn't allow you any money back for that. Whereas the American Opportunity Credit is partially refundable. So some of that would go towards reducing your tax, and some of the credit you would actually receive back as part of a refund. Okay, state tax returns are super simple because most of what goes into a state tax return is collected on the federal side of a program. So by the time you get into filing a state tax return, most of your income, or not most of your income, all of your income is already being pulled in to populate your state tax return. The state tax returns are very specific, where you're only asked questions that pertain to that state. Maybe they offer certain credits or deductions that are only eligible for those state taxpayers. So that you don't have to re-enter income or anything like that, because it's all pulled in from the federal side of the program. So it's actually super simple. One of the things that student athletes, students in particular, any student should be aware of is, what state taxes do I file? So if you live in California, your parents live in California, that's your home state, and you go to school in California, you're going to just file a California state tax return. If, however, you grew up in Massachusetts and went to school in California, you're actually going to have to file state tax returns for both states. Now, you don't have to pay taxes twice on income that you've earned. They, there's a credit that reconciles those so that both states acknowledge that this person lives here, but they, paid taxes in another state. And so that you're not double taxed or anything like that, but you are required to file both in your home state and the state where you earn the income. And by earned income, I mean whether it was wages or, NIL income, for example. Okay, so found this quote and I liked it, so I threw it in there. Learning about taxes when you're young is one of the smartest investments you can make in yourself. It gives you the power to take charge of your financial health without having to depend on anyone else. I'll just share a quick story. My daughter just graduated college and she is in her first professional job. And these are things that I talk with her about, that she needs to understand what her whole financial picture is. So, when she's putting money into savings, what that can look like in a year, how she could invest her money in a couple of years, to help it grow, or if she wanted to buy a house in 5 years, if she's knowledgeable about her entire financial picture, she can go into any type of investment situation or potential situation, understanding what her financial situation is. So I just think it's a really good idea to have solid knowledge of your full financial picture. Okay, so then utilizing the help that's available. Taxes can feel really overwhelming, especially when you're first starting out. It doesn't have to be stressful. You can start your tax return, decide like it's causing anxiety. I don't want to do this right now. Log off. Your information will be saved and you can come back to it later. Come back to it tomorrow and finish it. It shouldn't be crazy. There should also always be links for immediate help. You should always be able to access help when you need it. And um, links that answer all kinds of questions for you. If you reach out for help, you should be able to get that fairly quickly, and then, oh yeah, the dedicated email support. So like you should be able to reach out and get help pretty quickly for any questions that you may have. And we definitely encourage people not to file a tax return that you don't feel comfortable about. So if you're like, I filled this out, but I don't know if I did this correctly, you can email us and say, I filled this out and I don't know if I did this correctly. And we can help you determine if, in fact, you did that. And that's all.
That is it.